And welcome to I guess the first session of PhreakNIC. Hacking time, my journey into getting the most out of every minute. My name is Marc Brosey. And if you have any comments, questions outside the session, you can reach me at mdbrosey@gmail.com. I guess if you read my bio, I'm currently working. In my talk, I'm going to talk about a lot of my past working experience. I'm currently working with a company called Treos, and we're building a web native operating system. And so that's what I'm currently working on, and a lot of my time management has been going into that. But I guess getting started, several years ago, I read a Forbes article, and that Forbes article claimed that billionaires have their schedules timed down to 5-minute increments. So they know every 5 minutes of every day what they're going to be doing. Now that I'm about 5 years removed from that article, I went back looking for it, but I couldn't find it. And now that I have gone down my journey of tracking my time very minutely, it's surprising to me that they reported 5 minutes. But Forbes apparently has been putting out, they have a columnist that just puts out, this is what billionaires do. About every month they have a new column. You know, if you want to be a billionaire, do these things. And so I thought it might be cool to be a billionaire. So I built a spreadsheet to track my time. This is my first spreadsheet. Instead of doing 5-minute increments, I thought I'd start with 15-minute increments, especially since when you're building the spreadsheet, there's only enough room on a front and back piece of paper to have the 15-minute increments for a 24-hour period. And so I would print out this sheet every day, fold it up, stick it in my pocket, so it'd be portable, take it to work, pull it out, and I tracked my time every 15 minutes, what I planned to do for the next 15 minutes, and what I actually did for the 15 minutes prior. And what one thing I found out was tracking 15 minutes is much easier than 5, of course. But what I noticed was what I planned to do was always trumped by what I actually urgently needed to do. So planning, 15 minutes ahead, I kept getting derailed by things I wasn't expecting. But I did start to notice some patterns on how my time was spent and wasted when I go back and look at that sheet every day. However, analyzing my time this way was extremely cumbersome, because every 15 minutes I'm distracted by writing something on a sheet. So, how many people in here have used Jira? A bunch of people. So when I first started at the place I was working at this time, it was kind of a Wild West. I'm a software developer, and they pretty much said, hey, anything goes. We had people for source control. We had people using Subversion, Git, a Team Foundation server, and Visual Source Set. So it was whatever you wanted to use for whatever tool you wanted to use it for. You could even write your programs in any programming language you wanted to, but if you ever wanted to hand it off to another developer, they had a right of refusal, was the rules of how it all worked. And so people would write in any language, they'd do anything, and after the first year I was there, they started tightening that up. And the task tracking that everyone used at that point was, I used email, other people used text files, and it was just kind of haphazard. So they created a project management team for the first time, and then they all mandated that we use Jira. So in Jira, as many of you know, you can create simple tasks place those tasks into a sprint. And then as you work on those tasks, you can move them across the Kanban board. Does everyone here know what a Kanban board is?
No.
No. Okay. Kanban board is it's kind of this virtual, like it's columns. There are columns. Typically, you'll have the first column will be we'll say something like your backlog of tasks that you have for that sprint, and then the next column will say in progress, and then the next column will say maybe testing, and then you'll have the final column that says done. You completed that task. And so as you work your tasks, you move them to each column to show where they're at in the process of getting to done. Now the cool, fun thing about Jira and having that Kanban board is that when you move that, you take your mouse and you move that task to each position, especially when you move it into the done slot, you get this happy chemical in your brain that goes, oh, I just finished, I completed a task, and I feel energized when I do that. And then I want to do another task, because I'm seeing progress moving across that board. So as far as I was concerned, Jira was the bee's knees for that kind of thing. I wanted to have it at home. And I was like, how can I get this tool so that I can put all of my daily tasks, all my home tasks into a backlog, and then I can have a Kanban board and feel this good feeling when I'm doing household stuff. But it costs $120 per year, and that was just a little too rich for me. It's only $10 to build your own local server, and so I tried that, and their documentation, a little lacking, support, a little lacking, but you can do it, and I eventually did. I was able to build an instance of it. It's not ultimately what I use right now, but it's a way you can go. Once you've built it, once you've done it once, you learn all the ways you wish you had done it correctly. And so I would recommend if you build that install, be ready to tear it down and start over so you can build it right. But all I really wanted was a Kanban board. That's it. I just needed a tool to keep track of tasks I need to complete. And most importantly, I needed a way to release all those happy chemicals to keep me motivated to work on the next task. So I looked for open source solutions. There were some out there. They weren't very well supported. Someone had basically written their own tool that they wanted to use and then abandoned the project for the most part. Kanban boards and these tools, they were usually an afterthought, often had to be added using a mod. And so that was difficult to get the mod installed and to work properly with the tool. And another thing that happened around this time was PHP 7 got adopted as the, you must use this for the Ubuntu distribution, which is what I was using at the time, Linux. And PHP 5 was the language that most of these project management software packages were written in. So either you had to rewrite the whole thing for PHP 7, which no one was going to do for you, so you'd have to do that on your own, or you just didn't use it. So I had this idea, well, what about the extension for file system? You can pretty much write a file name and pretty much most any character you want to use. And so that could be your task name. And then if it's a text file, you can stick the description of the task right into the text file. If it's a zip file, it's like having an attachment. You can just stick any file into that zip archive, that compression. If you want to use tar, if you want to use GZ, whatever it is, the compression archive, you stick any file in there, and it's like having an attachment going to the task. And so it turns out a simple file system, file directory database of sorts, can be used to track tasks. So I used the Common File Explorer to create a poor man's Kanban board. And so what I kind of wound up with was something like this. So I said, okay, right now I need to present at PhreakNIC 23. So that's in progress right now. So I can move that into my in progress bucket. And so I set up a Raspberry Pi to do that. So I had all my buckets on the monitor with, I arranged my windows so that it would all create a Kanban board. And then I had in the background bash scripts running to do all the heavy lifting back-end stuff that Jira would be doing. But it was all custom, and I could set it up to do it the way I wanted to do it. And that worked really great for a long time. But what happened to time tracking? This talks about time tracking. We got off on a project management tangent. All these project management solutions help you keep track of the tasks, the things you need to get done. None of them adequately track your time, which is the limited resource required to get those tasks done. So project managers everywhere will protest. But you can track time in Jira. So every project manager I've ever had has asked me to track my time in their project management software. They ask me to estimate the time on the front end it will take for me to complete the task. Then, when I tell them how much time it's going to take, they tell me I'm full of it. And they want to reduce that time estimate, and they go in and tell me, this is your real time estimate. Then they ask me to track the real time it took me to complete that task. Then they get upset that the real time to completion is longer than their estimate. So when you get down to it, Jira is really just about, well, how much time do I think I'm going to take, and it's almost, I guess, maybe some people in here have done planning poker. It's almost like you're kind of gambling and making a deal with the project management team, and there's a lot of non-truths going on. It's kind of what I think of it. It's not like it's very easy to couch the numbers and not think about, in reality, how much time is actually being spent on everything and being real about that. So I left the company I was working for when I started this whole time journey, and I started working for a web agency. And they wanted me to track every minute of every project of every client I was working on, so that they could bill, if I worked, for minutes and seconds for a particular client, they could bill that straight to that client. So it was one-to-one time billing. If I worked on a project, I said I would actually keep track of, this is the client I'm working on, this is how long it took to work on it, and this is what I was doing when that happened. So I was encouraged to use their tools, FreshBooks and Toggle, that will do this for you. They're web-based. They work in a web browser. And the problem with that is whenever I'm doing web development, I have a ton of tabs open. And so FreshBooks and Toggle are just another browser tab. So Google Chrome likes to eat a ton of memory. And what would happen to me is I'd have all these browser tabs open. I'd be really focused on what I'm doing. I'd hit this level where Google Chrome starts kind of acting up, because it's eating a lot of system resources. And I need to kill something so that it all kind of comes back and works again. So what's the easiest thing to kill? Well, Google Chrome, because it's eating all their system resources, to bring it back up, because it's the thing that says not responding. And I was always wondering if I could trust my time that's being tracked in Google Chrome, because it's saying not responding the whole time I'm trying to track the time. And so I wasn't really much of a fan for this method of time tracking once my system as a developer started getting overloaded. So I started using my trusty Samsung clock app on my phone. So it has an excellent stopwatch on it with one click of a button. I can just start timing. And then when a task is done or put on hold and I move to a different task, I just press a button and it starts the next time. And it keeps track of each time just in a table. And so once I figured out I could do that, I got myself a little red time book. And I just started timing everything in my life. Not just the client's work, but everything. And I would put red stars next to everything I could bill to the web agency. And everything else was for my own information of what was going on in my life. And I could see how much time I was spending on everything. So this worked really well for getting my timesheet in every week and reporting my time and getting invoicing as a contractor, invoicing the web agency and getting paid. It also had good uses for figuring out exactly how much time I was spending doing routine daily actions. It's kind of interesting to me that before I started doing this, I thought just about everything, every place I needed to get to by car in my town was about 15 minutes away. And so, well, I'll see you in 15 minutes. Well, I only need to plan for 15 minutes to get from here to there. And what I found out is, well, some places are only 10 minutes away. And and I'll get there early. And some places are 20 minutes away, and I'm going to always be late. And I realized how stressed out I get when I try to go to the 20-minute places, because I wasn't, I was always late. I wasn't thinking about the actual time spent to do all that. So it helped me see, what was I actually doing versus what I thought was estimating that I was doing. But it was a complete waste of time for making projections or making schedule changes based on the aggregate of what I'd written down. The problem was, it's raw data collected in a notebook, so it cannot be easily parsed and analyzed. And I would be a waste of time to then just okay, now I've got the data, let me just punch it into the computer and have the computer do it for me. Around this time, I started having extreme anxiety. I had panic attacks, insomnia, the work. And I found out through a whole lot of process of elimination and recording using this time book, I found out that if I worked out at the gym 12 hours a week, I could eliminate most of my anxiety symptoms and get a good night's sleep, consistent. And so I realized somehow I needed to push myself and track in such a way that I could consistently squeeze this 12 hours. I have to plan to get it, to be able to do it. But I was going to squeeze 12 hours a week into my schedule to work out, because it was very important that I do so. And so I decided I need to build a time tracking application that solves my two primary time tracking problems. The first is, how can I not spend too much time on one task such as code development. If I'm in the zone, I'm too focused on code development, I forget that I need to do laundry. That kind of thing. To the exclusion of, focus on one task to the exclusion of other important ones. And then the second problem was, how can I distribute enough time on everything that I want to focus on during my week so I don't miss anything? So I don't look back and go, oh shoot, I wanted to spend more time on that, but I forgot about it because of this other thing that distracted me. So, if we look at the problem set, at this moment in time, I had a simple backlog that all my tasks were just dumped into. So if there's something I need to do, I make a task in my task tracking system, in the extension of forward file system, just throw it in the backlog. And then my philosophy was, well, if I just get busy, I could get everything done eventually. If I just get cracking, there's a finite number of tasks, right? It doesn't matter if it's like 10,000 in there. Eventually I'll get it done. It was too easy to choose easy and routine tasks from the backlog. And I'd miss all the hard stuff. I'd never get around to the complex things. The more I would do a routine task, the more I would choose to do a similar task to that routine task. So, for example, after completing a cleaning task, if I was doing cleaning in my house, I would notice all other cleaning that needed to be done. And so as soon as I was done with that first task, and I need to move on to another task, I'd have cleaning on my mind. And so the chances that the next task would be cleaning were very high. And I might go a day just doing cleaning. At the end of a week, the whole house would look great, but I hadn't written any code that week, which is a bad thing when you're a software developer. So I created these focus categories. So these are the things I want to focus on in my life. I want to make sure my space is clean. Everything. I need to do enough cleaning that I've got a clean space. I need to do development. So I need to write. This is not just writing code. This is doing things that help future me, future Marc. These are things where I create things. Where I'm creating things for myself or others. It's writing, being an author. It's anything that creates stuff. Engineering, hobbies, exercise. I needed that. I needed 12 hours a week of that. Learning. I wanted to read a chapter of a book every day and have some complex thoughts on it so I can build my knowledge. Organization. I wanted my life to be more organized so I can do things more efficiently. Publish, deploy. This is, I wanted to, whatever I developed, a certain subset of that I thought was ready and polished, I wanted to share with the world. So whatever I'd written, any code that I had completed where I had a finished software product, this category is I need to take time to get it out there so other people can use it and I can share with other people. Relationships. I wanted to set aside time where I'm spending time with my family, spending time with my friends, and being an active member of my community. Spirituality. I wanted to take time to practice spiritual disciplines of meditation. I try to, I'm a member of a church in my local community, and I try to be active in that church, and I try to read scripture every day. Those are things that were important to me that I wanted to put in my scheduling. And then sleep. I need to get 8 hours of sleep. And once I started tracking sleep, it was amazing to me. Once I actually started getting to sleep, how much better my life got. So I set up a time management plan. said, I'm going to spend 1 hour per day in each category, when possible, for a total of 6 hours per week per category. And I was going to get 8 hours of sleep per night and play catch up wherever necessary. So if I was lacking in one area, the day prior, I was going to make up for it as much as I could the next day. And my goal was to reach a total working time on all of my tasks of 60 hours per week. So this is my time tracking app. And I've got a dashboard. So as you can see, I spent a lot of time developing code and more than 6 hours per week. And so it turned green. But I didn't spend 6 hours cleaning or exercising. So those are red. And so I've got the time tracking application saying, hey, you didn't get enough sleep. It's red. You better work on that. And so if I see red, it clues me in. That's something I need to address. So if you're interested, this time tracker, I published a version of it up on GitHub that if you want, you can download it. I licensed it, it's GPL v3. There's a Vagrant file that's built in with it. So if you're familiar with Vagrant, you just download the Vagrant tool, and then you get inside a terminal where the code is, and you just type in Vagrant up, and it creates a Ubuntu box within your a virtual box within that directory, essentially, and starts up the web server. Or you can just set up the web server to use it. Like I've got at home, I've got it running off of a Raspberry Pi. It's very low system requirements. It's default user credentials or admin time tracker. I'm going to post these slides up on this GitHub repo after the session, so anyone who wants it, you can get the slides. So like I said, I've got this application running at my house on a Raspberry Pi. It's on my home network. So one warning, the security, I don't have any SSL certs, or anything like that on the time tracker. So it's not like ready for prime time to be pushed out to prod environment. But running on my home network seems to work. I'm comfortable with the level of security. I set in the Postgres database, it encrypts all passwords that get created with it using Blowfish. So you're not going to have any plain text passwords getting stored on your local servers. But I had, so my time tracker worked great for helping me balance my week across all of my categories. I got really good at it for months of making everything. I was getting good sleep. I was getting adequate exercise. I was getting things turned green. It seemed wonderful. But I found out this was kind of good-ish because I was making frustratingly slow progress on very important projects in each focus area. So for example, in the organization category, I was trying to set up a home library catalog. I've got a lot of books, and 1,500 books. And I thought, I always kind of thought that librarians had a good gig. They just sit around all day and, well, here's a book, let's punch it into the computer, and then just kind of slowly go and sort it. And my idea was, most of the time they spent doing anything, well, it had to be negligible. What did they actually do? Well, when I got into just my small amount of books compared to a big library, it's just 1,500 books, working on it for 1 hour per day, only 6 hours per week, 3 months later, I'm not done. I mean, I've probably put about 80 hours into it so far, which to me, starting out, that's insane. I wouldn't have expected that that's the case, but I haven't really been screwing around with it. I've been methodically timing every little piece of it, and it's taking me time to do these things that I thought didn't take time. And so, as part of my learning category, I read 2 books that have kind of helped me further along on my time tracking journey. The first one is Essentialism, The Disciplined Pursuit of Less by Greg McKeown, and the other one was How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big by Scott Adams, who's the guy who does Dilbert. So helpful takeaways from these books. First one is Greg McKeown builds his book Essentialism. For those, it's a book for those who feel like they're just moving an inch in every direction at once, but they're not actually going anywhere. That was me at this moment. I was a jack at focusing on all the little things and getting all these things turned green, but I was not a master of fully accomplishing anything. And it's from Essentialism that came up with a new method of task prioritization. I started every day, I'd take an index card and I'd write out the essential things I needed to do that day. But I also kept a task book. I've got a task book here that has all my tasks in it. Each page is a project, and each line is a task. And so I've got the pages numbered and the lines numbered with the category that I'm putting in my time tracker. And so every day I go through my backlog and figure out, okay, what are the 8 tasks that are most important, most urgent for me to get done right now? What are the things I need to, that I want to accomplish, that I need to accomplish soon, maybe even today? And there are 10 lines on an index card. So I just fill in 8. There are 2 left over. And so if something pops up unexpected, I'll squeeze it into one of those 2 additional lines. But if a third thing pops up, well, then obviously I'm not tracking my task correctly. That's too many things. I've got to prioritize. So I generally, when that third thing comes up, I negotiate and say, is that really what I need to be doing today? And I just try to get rid of it and only focus on what's on my card. So I lock down my essentials, daily essentials card, and only focus on those tasks. So this is an example of one of the cards I've got. So this is from yesterday, actually. So yeah, I needed to pack for PhreakNIC. I needed to get a tire rotation before I could drive here. And so I drove here, and every time I write done to the side of one of these, it gives me a little bit of the same kind of brain chemical spike that moving that task across the Kanban board does. Now this is my paper prototype, so eventually I want to add this into the time tracker app, because that would be a whole lot easier than keeping track of an index card and a notebook. But doing the index card and the notebook actually still works pretty well. One thing I did notice when I've been using this method is there's some tasks that just take a long time and might stretch over days because they're so big and complex. And so for those, what I'll sometimes do, instead of writing done, because it's not done, but I need to feel like I've actually made progress on it to move forward and to not get discouraged from keeping working on it. I'll put the number of hours that I've worked on. I'll say, well, I put in an hour on that really long task today. So I'll put 1 hour next to it. And so that clues my brain in, no, you're actually working on it. You're actually making progress. Don't sweat it. Just keep going. And so that's helped me a lot. So also in Essentialism, McCown emphasizes the importance of daily play in building mental connections and brain plasticity. This is something that, I always, as I was doing a lot of this time tracking, I'm like, I don't have time to play video games. I don't have time to have fun. I've got to get down to business and get these things done that I said I told myself I wanted to accomplish. But it turns out, as the science in Essentialism that is cited in that book, is that play is important. It actually helps you connect all those things together. And if you're not getting 1 hour a day, according to the book, you're suffering for it. And so I added play onto my dashboard. And so now it turns red at me and says, you're not playing enough video games, or you're not getting out enough, and playing volleyball, or at the beach, or whatever. I need to get out there, play tennis. I need to do something that's fun, and that I'm just being playful at, and I'm not thinking about just completing a task. And then there's how to fail at almost everything still in big. Scott Adams' premise in this book is that we're all moist biological computers that can be programmed. And that sounds great to me as an because I like programming computers, and if I can tweak myself, hey, that's really great. So he talks about how he focused his mind by the use of affirmations. Specifically, he wrote down, or he didn't write, I think in the book he says he wrote down, and he said out loud to himself for years, I, Scott Adams, will be a famous cartoonist. He says in his book, he wasn't a good cartoonist. He knew he probably could never be a good cartoonist. But he said he was going to make sure he was a famous cartoonist. And he said that over and over again to himself for years before Dilbert became big. And it was his belief that he had programmed himself to get there. So Scott Adams is not the first author I've read that has said that affirmations can be used and they can be powerful to program your mind. The other places I've read, it said that they can be verbalized, written down, or simply read by sight. I've found it helpful to do all three at the same time. So, and I've read that affirmations are best absorbed just by going to sleep. And so that's what I do when I set up my affirmations. So my affirmation, one of them is, I, Marc Brosey, want to be or I, Marc Brosey, will be a successful entrepreneur. That's something that's very important to me. And so I write that down every night, say it out loud before I go to sleep. Those who effectively use affirmations, Scott Adams included, make it clear that this is not magic. It's just focus. It's programming that helps the brain focus. So before I go to bed each night, take a piece. My routine is I take a piece of notebook paper and I make a list of all the positive things that happen to me during the day. And then I write my affirmations at the bottom of that list, the good things that I want to focus on, and the things I want to be, and the direction I want to go. And then I go to sleep on all that good stuff. I feel like this is way more effective than for me to sleep on my default thoughts from a blah day, or even worse, the negative thoughts that creep up into my head, that, especially the anxious ones. So I feel like affirmations and listing out the positives of each day are probably the best gift I can give to my future self. Scott Adams also said that he believes that time management is not really as important as energy management. Some tasks are easier to do in the morning. For me, code development is best done at night. For some reason, once it becomes dark outside, it's about 10 o'clock at night, and I'm in the zone. I can write code until 4 in the morning. But if it's first thing in the morning, I'm dragging. I'm not a morning person, and thinking about complex things early in the morning is tough. So early in the morning, I'd rather be doing laundry, because I don't have to think about it as hard. And so managing my energy around the clock might be more effective instead of just saying, hey, I got a task to do. It's time, I want to get this code written, so I'm going to make myself focus and do it. So his advice is to optimize the amount of energy, total energy you have whenever possible. So, good sleep, good exercise, eating healthy, all the things you can do to increase your pool of energy to be more efficient with your time. So, what's next for me on my journey? Now that I've been doing all this time and project tracking and affirmations for years, am I a billionaire yet? Nope. Not yet. One thing I will say is it's easy to fall off the wagon. And I've experienced how easy that is to do. Over time, and when I started doing this, it was easy to miss tracking things, forget that I need to punch the next. I started something new and I forgot to time it, things like that. But over time, I've gotten a whole lot more disciplined with how I use my time and what I'm doing. But I'm still pretty far away from where I think I want to be. But also, life will come up and just punch me. At the end of September, while I was working out my 12 hours a day at the gym, and I successfully did that for over a year, I started feeling this weird pain in my abdomen. And so I went to the ER thinking I had appendicitis, and they said, no, your appendix is fine, but there's a growth there. There's something going on in the colon. And so it turns out I had a tumor. And so I spent over a week in the hospital from surgery where they pulled out the tumor, and that set me back. When I have an IV in my arm, I can't write code. I can't really do much. And so it really made me aware of, I was only put out for, it was a tough recovery period. And I wasn't really sure how long it was going to be, but doctors told me, no, you worked out for a whole year. You're in great shape. You're doing way better than other people. And so it kind of clued me in that being disciplined and being ready for the things where life just comes up and punches me. At the time when life, when I fell off that wagon, I got discouraged. I said to myself, what's the point of doing all this stuff if I'm just going to get punched out and find myself lying on the ground? But, all the indicators in reality were, no, be disciplined because life's going to punch you and it's going to be easier when it does. If I have been doing all these things that I've been doing. And it turned out that helped me a lot. And so when I fall off the wagon, the sooner I can get back on, the better I'm going to be in the long run, is what I've kind of experienced. So, but what are the practical next steps for, what I need to do? Well, I need to get, like I said, I need to get this task book and my daily essential cards. They need to be digital. I need them in my, I need them to be software, especially where I can track electronically everything that's going on. It'd be really great if I didn't have, if it was integrated with my stopwatch. So all I had to do was punch the button and then say what task it was. Just hey, I guess most people have Apple devices. So it's like, hey Siri, this task, and then it just automatically takes that time and puts it in for me. So that's all to do. It'd be great if I can add graphs to the time tracker to analyze my time spent across categories of projects, where I can see a line chart that says, hey, in your library catalog system, you used a lot of time here. And then I can see, okay, on what days did I spend the most time doing what across projects and across categories over weeks, that go back weeks and weeks, months and months. And then what would be really good is to make the application a progressive web app so that I can access it while I'm not tied to my local network, home network. I can use it while I'm on the go, and then once it connects back to my local network, then it can all tie back in again with all the changes. And like I said, make the application voice responsive so it can be used when one is unable to type, such as when you have an IV in your arm and you're stuck in the hospital. So, long story short, I'm not a millionaire, but I'm way more organized and responsible than I used to be. I feel like I'm getting more done now, more consistently than I ever have in my life. Now, I can't conclusively back that up with any data because I didn't have data where I was organized. But I feel like I'm way more organized and I'm getting more done because the data I have now conclusively says that I'm getting things done. So that's about where I'm at on my journey.